Hello there,
Hello.
sir.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
We look alike a little bit, don't you think?
Yes. Well, people.
Is it the nose, maybe?
No, I think you might be racist. You think all people from the Middle East look the same.
Or Jews, maybe?
Yes. Are you? Did
Am
you
I racist?
Jew?
No, no.
Oh.
I'm an ex-Muslim from a Sunni family.
Yes. You're welcome, Omar Makram, to deconstructive criticism. I should start by saying.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
And I would like to. My first question to you is, Omar Makram, are you named after the resistance hero or the cemetery?
Well, both, because they are both named after that supposed hero.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you
but
were
there's
you,
no relationship between us.
no. It's
No.
like being Lars Svensson in Sweden, probably.
Is it?
I don't
Wouldn't
know.
know.
I haven't been enough to Egypt. I've been to Egypt, but not enough.
You have? When was that?
A year ago, I was in Cairo and Alexandria.
Did you like it over there?
Well, I'd say the ambiance in the air in Cairo felt a bit subdued
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
and I'd say there was a sort of a Stimmung of paranoia in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I mean, they thought my blonde Swedish friend, who is completely ethnically Swedish, was Mossad. So you can just imagine what they thought about me.
yeah, yeah. Well, the conspiracy theories in the Arab world are very very strong, even against me. I'm often told that I work for some Zionist Jewish conspiracy, and that I'm being paid by the Jews.
And now they will see this as proof.
Yeah, exactly. And I would be waiting for my checks from you. You have to get me my money if I'm employed by the Jews.
Uh, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
I'll contact the Zionist World Council and see what I can do.
Yes. Thank you
Um,
very much.
but so you're an Egyptian here seeking asylum here in Sweden, basically.
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
I am. Yeah.
So, what's your story? How did you end up becoming an asylum seeker?
Well, it has to do basically with my views on religion and having left Islam. I'm basically a critic of Islam and yeah, of religion in general, but Islam more specifically because of my heritage and coming from a Sunni family. And yeah, I ran into trouble in Egypt with some Islamists and then consequently with the police because we have blasphemy law in Egypt or contempt of religion law. That basically you cannot say anything that's deemed to be insulting to one of the Abrahamic religions, but more specifically when it comes to Islam.
So, what did you do to offend this poor, oppressed majority of Islamists in Egypt?
Basically, I was I was in a cafe with a friend of mine, and basically I was just talking to my friend about my views, what I think of Muhammad, how this whole idea of the Abrahamic God does not make sense to me, and this just sounds like a crazy sadistic tyrant. And I went to the details about Muhammad and him marrying, having sex with a 9-year old and all that. And I
Aisha.
was yes, and I was overheard by people basically who were sitting at the cafe who just then approached us and were quite angry, and they were saying that I should not be allowed saying these things and the authorities should do something about it, and if not, then somebody else should. And yeah,
But you aren't allowed to say those things in Egypt, are you?
it's a bit tricky. You basically, if someone pressed charges against you, you would be basically arrested and could go to prison. There's one guy who was sentenced to prison just for putting his religious status on Facebook, atheist. That in itself could be deemed insulting Islam or contempt of religion
Well, you are
because you're
denying God if you're an atheist.
yes, yes, exactly. You're expressing some kind of dislike of religion. and this in itself could be like something that could get you into trouble. But anyways, like at the time, it was still not that popular that or not that many people go to the prison because of their views on religion. Like blasphemy cases were not that much.
When was this? Was this during Mubarak still, or?
No, this was after. This was in 2011. Yeah, this
Okay.
was after Mubarak.
So Morsi, basically.
It was like during the time of the military. This transition. Yeah. I was under the naive impression maybe that since the authorities in Egypt are known not to be fond of Islamists, so that I could seek protection from the police about this, and I was scared for my life because they seemed like really intimidating people with like beards and all. So I panicked. I went to the police, and like I wanted to say that I'm being threatened, but then they had to ask me about the details, why, and so on. And then when we approached the subject, the police officer got like really angry and then said like, well, you deserve what's coming to you, and actually you'll be investigated for contempt of religion and so on. And yeah, so I just but they did not try to arrest me or anything, but I got scared basically, and I decided, okay, I have to leave. Yeah.
So how did you get out of Egypt then and to Sweden?
I got a Schengen visa basically. That was valid just for 1 month, and took a flight and came to Europe. Sweden. Yeah, thank you very much. But Sweden was not actually my first destination. Like I had a really good job in Egypt, and I was the operations manager for a big maritime shipping company. So I had like a lot of savings and investments and stuff. And in the beginning, I was just afraid because this incident was so fresh. So I basically stayed under the radar and was living on my own savings and so on. And then eventually I decided, okay, I cannot go back there anyways, because I also have like a social media activity and so on. So I came to Sweden and I applied for asylum. That was in September 2014.
Okay, and what happened then?
Basically, when I came here, I had a very rosy image about Sweden, that it's like the bastion of human rights. I will just come in and I will tell them everything about my case and why I'm on the run and so on, and provide them with evidence, and they will basically understand.
Because you were applying for asylum as basically it's a question of freedom of conscience, right?
Yes. Actually, there are two kinds of asylum, basically. There is refugee status, and there is subsidiary protection. Subsidiary protection is given to people that are fleeing from war, for example. So Syrians, for example, they get subsidiary protection. Refugee status is given to people that who are fleeing because of whether political views, religious views, or things to do with their sexual orientation. So individual cases, basically, which are much harder to prove because you cannot tell people we don't believe there's a war in Syria, but if somebody else with an individual case, no matter what they say, migration board can just say we still don't believe you. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard. So you went for sexual orientation atheist?
No, I did not get the sexual orientation part. Unfortunately, I'm as straight as they come.
Okay, well, congratulations, women, then. And then they denied you asylum, basically.
Yes. They just had like a they used very weird and conflicting excuses, like quite silly, like even like within the details of the decision, they were contradicting themselves at some points. Some points they were saying, yeah, like you seem to be an atheist. At other points, no, you have not made it genuine that you're an atheist, and you have not given us proof that the Egyptians are aware of your views, like the Egyptian authorities are aware of your views. Um, I remember even like when we had I had an appeal at the migration court, and I went for a court hearing, and a Swedish friend of mine came as a witness because he teaches at a school which I went to and talked about my views and why I had to escape Egypt and how like my views on Islam and so on. And he came as a witness, and I remember in the end. In the closing, the lady from migration board was saying, but how do we know? Maybe if we send him back to Egypt, he will hide or change his views.
Yes.
And my friend in the end was like, he almost refused to shake hands with her because, it was very insincere, and he said they are evil.
I think there might be some truth to that, in that stupid people sometimes do evil things. But this led you to do quite an extreme thing, because I saw the video of you, let's face it, you burned a Quran on tape.
Yes, I desecrated in various ways. Yeah.
Yes. But that actually, it hurt me a bit inside, I will tell you, because I'm a big fan of freedom of speech, and I think you shouldn't destroy culture or burn books, because basically that's what Nazis and ISIS are doing, and it's sort of an attack on our collective consciousness or history or memory as a species. But that is how far you had to take it to prove that you're an atheist.
Yes, true. Me personally, I'm not a fan of burning books either, and this is not my style. And I would not say that I would object to somebody doing it, because this in itself is part of like freedom of expression. And I'm not burning all books or like all copies of the Quran in the world, but this was done for a specific purpose, as you have seen in the video.
Yes.
Basically, I was being pushed to prove beyond doubt that I'm not Muslim. So like the evidence that I submitted to them before, whether by like the social media or just telling them about my views and how I came to leave Islam and so on, this was not sufficient. So I had to do something that would prove it to them. Because they said that because they acknowledged that atheists in Egypt are being persecuted, but they refused to acknowledge that I am one.
Yes, but it's very hard, because I think as in Western society there is such a big colonial debt that seeing a person burn the Quran, it sort of even for me as a Jew, I think not as a Jew, just as a person. It brings not memories, because I wasn't alive, but it brings memories of things you've read from history, of forced conversions, both from Islam and to Christianity, and from Christianity or Judaism back and forth. There's a history of forced conversions, right? So so you start remembering that. And also, how do you prove you're an atheist? Do you swear allegiance? What's the atheist prayer?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the basic tenet?
Well, it's I think it has to do more with like being a vocal atheist, like being vocal about your views. That would put, like, if you are just like an atheist and don't talk about it in Egypt, then maybe nothing would happen to you. But if you are vocal about your views, then this is where trouble comes. And I think, well, you would be persecuted if you converted to Christianity as well, like from Islam to Christianity. But isn't
rationality somehow worse? because it's not even really a religion.
To be a rational person.
Yes.
Well, not for me.
No.
What else do we have if that's the case?
No, but I mean, because there are tenets in Islam that says that, you know, other people of the book can live within Muslim majority societies, right? But an atheist is basically denying God. So that's, I mean, if you believe in Jesus, at least you believe in Jesus Christ, which Islam recognizes as a prophet, at least, if not the Son of God. So an atheist should be theologically worse somehow.
Definitely. People of the book, as they are called in Islam, like Jews and Christians, have a better status than others, or like than atheists. But there's also a difference. There's a difference between apostates and atheists in Islam. So an apostate, someone who was a Muslim and left the religion, is different from someone who has never been a Muslim before. The punishment for the first is death for apostasy in Islam. You cannot leave the religion. But for atheism, if you haven't been a Muslim before that, then the punishment is not death in Islam.
No, because then you're a potential customer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dissatisfied customers you want to get rid of as soon as possible. It might spread to other customers.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you are vocal. There was actually like an interview with the head of Al Azhar University in Egypt, and he openly said, that apostates who are vocal about their views should be killed, and that's one of the biggest Sunni institutions in the whole world. So that's an acknowledged penalty for apostasy in Islam. Going back to the video, I was after actually I made that video. So maybe to talk about the video a little bit, like I just talked about my views and my views on Islam, and decided the only thing to prove that I am no longer a Muslim is to desecrate a copy of the Quran. And also doing that, I said that I will be sending this to the Egyptian authorities, because Migration Board was using this as an excuse that you have not been able to provide us with a document, like an official document to prove that they know about you.
Yes.
Which is impossible to get. So I made that video, and then I showed it to my lawyer at the time, and some of my friends who here in Sweden who knew about my case. Basically, everyone freaked out. They said, "Okay, that's pretty heavy, and perhaps probably it will lead to you getting asylum, but do you really want to do it? Because maybe you will get asylum, but you will not live long to enjoy it."
That was my fear when I saw it as well. I was like, this is basically suicide by fatwa.
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't care as much about that. Because I was supposed to be deported, and I could not go back there. So for me, like anything that increases my chances to stay here, I would do it, because and especially I was like really, it rubbed me off the wrong way that they refused to acknowledge that I have left Islam. So they suggested that I first send it to Migration Board privately, and to basically expose to them the how serious my views are, and so on. So I actually did that. I sent it in an email to Migration Board, and while copying the Egyptian Foreign Ministry, the Egyptian Interior Ministry, and the Egyptian Embassy in Stockholm in the same email.
Yeah, why would they freak out about that?
Yeah, and first, actually, the Migration Board said that they could not open the link for some reason, because probably they don't have a cloud sharing program possibility at work. And then they asked me to send it in a different way, so I uploaded it on YouTube, but as unlisted first. So, and I sent them the link, Then they first rejected it and said it had too few views.
Okay.
Yeah, and that since they could not open the link in the first email, so the Egyptians could not see it either. I was like, what the fuck? Like you couldn't, yeah. So I decided, okay, well, you're really forcing my hand. So I just posted it online and just posted, like, pushed it on social media. Yeah, and it caught fire.
No shit.
Yeah.
And by now, one can say that they have no grounds to reject you.
One could think so. I actually, based on that video and on an additional video that I made after that, which has got even more views, where I talked about in detail why I left Islam and so on. Based on these two videos, my case with a new asylum case has been opened for me with Migration Board, and I had my hearing in February for them to evaluate my case. And my lawyer, I had a new lawyer then, and my lawyer, like after we had the hearing, and he heard how I was talking about religion and how I left and so on, he said it's very strange that they did not believe you the first time, and that they thought your views are not genuine. Because when the interviewer from Migration Board asked me about why I left Islam and why I'm an atheist now, I went on a rant for like an hour.
Yeah. So it sounded too rehearsed, maybe.
Not really. It's just like I was talking like about my train of thought, and I even told her that I'm not. Like, I would describe myself more as an anti-theist, not an atheist, and she got confused about what that means, and I had to spell it for them, and like, yeah.
So what do you mean by the difference between atheist and anti-theist?
For me, atheist, just a person who does not believe in the existence of God or any deity. But an anti-theist who is someone who believes religion is harmful. So this is more my stance, and this is why I speak against religion, I criticize it, and I speak against Islam because of that. So I'm not like really neutral about it. So this would, more accurate to say that I'm an anti-theist, in my opinion.
Yes, I understand. I'm an anti-theist also, but it's a matter of principle for me. The existence of God or not is irrelevant. I don't take orders from anyone else but me.
Yeah, that's good. Good for you. So based on that, I'm like, my new case is being evaluated currently, and I'm expecting the decision on my case very soon, I hope.
But I think we should talk a bit more about this Quran burning thing, because we can't have people proving to be atheist by constantly burning Qurans. So we have to find a way to desecrate them. I mean, I thought the spitting was nice, and then I thought urinating might be a bit much. And also, it destroys.
It did cross my mind.
Yeah, but it also destroys the text. So you want to, because I remember one of the things that I was pro the first U.S. war in Afghanistan, but I was pro that war before 9/11, because the Taliban destroyed those two big Buddha statues. Remember?
Yeah.
It was in the papers. They destroyed them. They were like 3,000 or 5,000 years old. And they destroyed the Modern Museum of Kabul. And for me, that's such an attack on a collective memory or a piece of culture. And also, it's their method.
Yeah.
Do you understand? It's like that's what the opposition is doing. So that's what we're not. So you have to come up with a good way to desecrate the Quran without actually destroying it, out of principle, sort of, I think.
Yeah, well, I do understand what you're saying, and like I said, it's not my style and to do that, and I did it just specifically to prove a point. But I think.
But that's what
usually,
I'm saying. If a lot of people have to prove that point in the near future, we need another way to prove that point.
I think two things should be sufficient. First, that you demonstrate that you are open with your views, and I think it's for me at least, and I think for many people, it's easy to spot a person whose views are genuine or not. It's very difficult to like see my social media activity and like my videos and the articles I write and so on, and still think that I am Muslim. That would be like too strange. So this should be sufficient in my opinion. Plus, they really drill you in the hearings with migration board. They drill you about specifics of your views and why exactly and what's this point and which part of the Quran you did not like, which part of the history of Islam, and you have to really talk about it in much detail. This is why I told you the lawyer was quite surprised that they did not think my views are genuine before. And the previous lawyer actually thought the same thing. He told me there's 80% that if you go in front of the court and talk to them about your views, it's very, very difficult for them to still think that your views are not genuine.
Yes, and I read the 3 articles at least that was translated into Swedish because you sent them to me, and I also read your blog before. And that is in English, and there will be links to this episode so people can find out for themselves what your views are. But in short, those 3 articles that has been translated into Swedish, how would you summarize your views on Islam?
Well, my views on Islam. Why I left Islam was because there is a quote by someone that I cannot remember. The best cure for religion is studying the scripture. And this is exactly what happened in my case. At some point, I just studied the Quran and the Hadith and the early history of Islam. And there's just so much there that goes in contrast, opposition to the values that I hold. The values of equality or being pro-gay rights or women rights and so on. Islam is simply not compatible with the values of human rights and equality. So this is my objections about Islam, in addition to my objections about the existence of the Abrahamic God in general, and the idea of a God that is creating people weak in order to sin, and he gets mad because of the way he created them and the sins that he has foreseen because he's omniscient. And because of that, he sends them to burn in hell for eternity. This does not make any sense whatsoever to me. And other things that about Islam, if you really go into the early history of Islam, you would see that jihadism and the ideology of conquest, it's very much entrenched in Islam and its early history. And this is also something that's really, I've been raised to romanticize Muhammad as the best model for a human being. But after really going into detail about his life and what he's done, he was merely a warlord, basically.
Well, I think that's quite unfair. He was a very good warlord.
Yeah, he was clever.
I mean, if you have 3 sons as a mother and you raise them to be warlords, and Muhammad is one of them, he'd definitely be your favorite son.
Yeah, he was good at it.
Yes.
Yeah, he knew how to hook people into this whole gang thing. So because of that, I just this was a gradual phase, of course. I went through several of them. One of them is leaving Sunni Islam and become a Quranist, relying only on the Quran, because there's so much shit in the Hadith, and it's much more explicitly violent than many of the verses in the Quran.
And the hadith are the actions of Muhammad, the sayings and actions.
The sayings and actions of Muhammad, yes, exactly. So at some point I dropped the hadith and just relied on the Quran. But then I found the same thing, and if you would see the chronological order of the verses in the Quran, you would see how the progression into a more violent rhetoric in the verses, because there was the Mecca phase, there was the Medina phase after Muhammad and his companions went from Mecca, migrated from Mecca to Medina. In the Mecca phase, they were still kind of weak, so you would find most of the peaceful verses are in the Mecca period. And after that, in the Medina, when they started to form this gang, basically, in order to raid caravans and so on, the verses of the Quran took a much more militaristic style to reflect how Islam became at the point.
So you think that the more they had the option of using force to get what they wanted, the more they actually used force. And in that development, they had to justify that as well, which became part of the religion. And,
exactly.
Because the religion really only started to become really successful when it started using violence.
Exactly, yes. That was the case. And if you would look at the last detailed surah or chapter in the Quran, it's called the Tawbah. It's one of the most violent surahs in the Quran that has the most violent verses, which says that that you should basically conquer even people of the book until they give the jizya, which is this extortion money that they give Muslims for but basically that Muslims have to rule. And that is, even by the consensus of most scholars, that should be what the verses are calling for.
Because you don't think, in your articles at least, you don't really believe in a reformation of Islam, because Judaism solved the problem that you're describing now, how you left the hadith and became more and more fundamentalistic, basically, going to a more extreme version of the source. Judaism has in essence moved in the other direction, where they said, well, the source is not the word of God, will interpret the source, and then will interpret the interpretation of that source, and then will interpret the interpretation of the interpretation of the interpretation, and then you just lock all these crazy people in a room and they get to interpret for all of eternity. They will still cause trouble, but they will be 50 years behind the time, because they have to hash it out first. So, but you don't think Islam can go in the same direction, where you just...
I think that's very difficult for various reasons. One of them is that the Quran is not considered like some kind of divine inspiration or just merely the word of God. It's the literal speech of God, word for word. Like no human being, like this what's believed in Islam, no human being intervened at all in the words themselves.
Because Muhammad was illiterate, right? He couldn't read and write.
This is what Muslims believe as well. There's actually no consensus on that, when it comes to historicity, because maybe he wasn't, maybe he was, but this is what Muslims believe. The revelation, like Gabriel, the angel Gabriel coming with the literal speech of God to Muhammad, it's very, very strong in Islam. I don't see how this can be broken or changed. So it's believed to be the literal speech of an omniscient God who sent this as the final perfect message to humanity. So there's very little room for maneuver here. This is one thing. And another thing is that there is only, there are some people who say that there's million ways to interpret the text and so on. This is not really the case. I mean, there is the text is malleable, flexible only to some extent. You cannot say that a verse that's saying kill the infidels means give the infidels flowers, or a verse that says beat your wife means kiss your wife. There's just there's just some limits to how things can be reinterpreted. And there have been attempts at trying to reform before, and they have all failed. This is not something new. And I think sometimes when non-Muslims or people who are not familiar really with what religion means to religious people, they see someone who's like a liberal Muslim, for example, who's like drinking or who has like non-marital sex or whatever. And then they say, see, that means that they believe Islam is okay with it. And that's far from the case. The majority of liberal Muslims have a lifestyle that is in contrast with Islam, not because they think Islam is okay with it, just because they want to live their life. So they ignore Islam. They ignore the scripture. Like I know my sister, my younger sister, for example, she drinks or she has like relations outside of marriage and so on. But that's not because she thinks, like if you would ask her, she would say, yeah, it's probably a sin in Islam, but she just doesn't care that much. And this is the case for the majority of liberal Muslims. And during the so-called liberal periods in Islamic history, that was also the case. The closer the closer you get to Islam, or to try to go by Islam and as the way to govern your country, the shittier things become. And the more you move away from it or ignore it, the better the society becomes. It has been the case throughout history.
Yes, well, goes for most religious theocracies. I can't actually think of one that can be held up as a shining example of perfect governance.
No.
No. So now you live here, and I mean, because I read Sam Harris when I was like 25, and I was like, yay, militant atheism, because I grew up conservatively Jewish, which means my parents didn't really actually believe in God as much as they believed maybe in tradition. So I had to spend my Saturdays in temple, reading the Old Testament, and some parts are exciting because there's magic and dragons and demons and stuff, and then some things are just you notice that this can't be entirely correct. Like, say for instance, in the Old Testament, if you get dirt on your clothes, then the tip from the Old Testament is that you shouldn't wash your clothes. You should go to a rabbi, who then determines that you should live naked outside the city walls for 7 days. And then he'll come by after 7 days with some sort of bird, which he'll kill and then spray the blood on you, and then you're clean, which doesn't really sound like the best washing advice if you get dirt on your clothes.
No, it does not. But then again, we would get a lot of public nudity around, which,
Yes. But living in Sweden, I mean, this is the most secular country in the world. It's probably one of the most instinctively atheist countries in the world. You haven't really had to be a militant atheist in any way, shape, or form, but you come from a part of the world where it's really a matter of life and death. So it's your perspective must be quite different on religion. I mean, how forcefully it must affect your life.
You mean like my life here in Sweden?
Well, what do you think about Sweden? Because here you see a society where we have removed religion. We have people still believe in ghosts and social democracy, but and astrology. But in general, religion doesn't seem to take up much space, does it?
No, and this can be actually a double-edged sword, maybe, because in one way it's good, but people have been cut off from religion here for so long that they have totally lost understanding of what religion means to religious people. Like, I have a lot of conversations because, well, my views are not exactly politically correct, and I have a lot of conversations with people here in Sweden, and like this is more like obvious maybe on the left and among like anti-racists and so on. that this like postmodernist thought is like so strong that they say that religion can mean anything, text can mean anything, and they almost sometimes don't see connection between religious extremism and religion. Like they say like this is totally politics, like religion has nothing to do with it, and
It's socioeconomic in their view most of the time.
Yeah. And they, when I talk about Islam, they, even though they don't know much about it, but I have some people who try to basically attack my views or like defend Islam on behalf of the oppressed people or like the Muslims just because they are brown probably or whatever. But they just, many people here view things only in terms of oppressor and oppressed.
Yes.
So when I talk about Islam negatively, what they see is that me attacking like Muslims. So they have this knee-jerk reaction of rushing into the defense of Islam. So they went from trying to, like, let's say, trying to stamp out Islamophobia, even though this is a term that I really object to because it conflates Islam and Muslims as the same thing. But they went to some sort of weird Islamophilia, try to like praise Islam or say how good it is. I even have had people like throw at me some fake hadith and so on, saying like, see how good it is, and I'm like saying actually the hadith does not say that.
Which hadith is it that they refer to? Is it the one with the Jew killing, or is it the one?
Yeah, like the last hour will not come before the Muslims kill the Jews. No, I don't know.
Listen, I mean, it would, if Muslims had existed when the New Testament was around, it would probably be a verse in there about killing you guys. Fortunately for us Jews, the only verses about killing people are about people who are long since killed. So,
so you're good now.
I'm scot-free. I don't have to kill anyone, as far as I know.
That's good for you. But yeah, you have I think a problem with obsession with political correctness here in Sweden. People, and maybe I don't know about censorship, but there is a lot of self-censorship. People are afraid to speak. Many people are afraid to speak because of how they would be judged by others.
Well, if all words are can be interpreted any way you want, depending on context and victimhood, then you should be careful with what words you use, because they can always be construed to mean something else than you meant.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually had, I remember a funny conversation I had with a Swedish person at a party. When I was talking about my views on Islam, she got like really upset. And she was like telling me, why are you attacking Muslims? And I was like, actually, I'm not attacking Muslims. I'm just talking about Islam. She could not see the difference. And but you should not kick down. And those people are oppressed. And I was like, yeah, but I'm just talking about my views and why I had to escape from my country. And like like ex-Muslims in Muslim majority countries are persecuted and so on. She was saying, no, but you have to speak about all religions then at the same time. So I told her I have to speak about criticize all religions equally. She said, yeah, you have to be fair. I was like, okay. No, I will not do. Nobody has the time or knowledge to speak about everything. You can talk about Christianity all you want, but
also it probably wouldn't be fair because different religions have different outcomes in application. So you can't judge them equally just for being religions.
Yeah,
they have different effects.
I agree.
Yes.
And she was like, and I was talking to her about apostates being killed in Muslim majority countries, and she was saying, but what about Mozambique? And I was like, what? What about Mozambique? She's saying, why are you not talking about Mozambique? And I was like, why would I talk about Mozambique? She said, yeah, but people who leave Christianity there are killed. Like me, an ex-Muslim would have to talk about why people who leave Christianity are killed. And actually, this is like fake news or alternative facts. I checked it later. There is no such thing. I don't know how she came up with it.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard about it. I mean, I've heard people being killed for leaving Christianity or defaming Christianity, but it was a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. She's still stuck there, I think.
The Galileo
But
guy stands out in my memory. I think he was at least threatened with death or imprisonment if he didn't take back his statement. But that was a long time ago.
yeah. Well, I get a lot of people who criticize Islam get a lot of whataboutry.
Yes.
What about Christianity? What about the Crusades? What about this? Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I think that might actually be a unique leftist thing, because if you start accusing leftists, at least this is my experience in Sweden or Europe, they immediately will blame someone else for something similar. And it might be true, there might be someone else who did something similar, but it doesn't really excuse what they are doing, which is what I'm trying to explain all the time. So,
yes.
Do you see now what happens when you remove Islam or monotheism? Instead, you get postmodernism as a new religion. How do you like that religion?
It's crazy. It's destroying. It's an attack on reason, on science, on like rational thinking, on
basic biology.
Yeah, that's it. On the meaning of words and languages.
Yes.
It's so destructive.
I know, but they believe that language constructs the world and not that we use words to describe the world, which is two different ways of looking at language. Makes it quite difficult to communicate sometimes.
True. And I think also because they view the world, or many of them at least, strictly in terms of oppressed and oppressor.
Yes.
So you just if someone is like a white male, for example, just by that being a white male, he's already belonging to a privileged group of oppressors, and he should get less whether room to speak, less advantage or whatever, even individually, as someone from who was perceived as belonging to an oppressed group.
It's the only reason I'm listening to you now is because you're a brown refugee.
Brown.
So I have to listen to you. If you had been a woman and a lesbian as well, then I would have to obey you in everything you said.
Yeah, that the ultimate would have been like a black lesbian Muslim woman in a hijab. That would have been the ultimate.
You have to throw in Inuit, transsexual, and some really obscure religion as well. Yes, I want to thank you for talking to me, Omar, and because these were the questions I had to start with, and I was wondering if you'd like to come on again, because this is quite interesting, and I want to know how your application goes for your asylum process.
It was a pleasure, and it would be a pleasure to come on again. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you.